The professor's deadly pet feared no one, until it faced a human Part 1 professor. Dae-hyun stood behind the reinforced glass wall and smiled. Before him, in a massive containment chamber, was the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. The Vorithax. He called it Razor. Razor was 12 feet tall. Its body was covered in thick armor plates that could stop laser fire. Sharp claws extended from its 6 legs, each one capable of cutting through solid metal. Rows of teeth filled its mouth, dripping with venom that could kill most species in seconds. 4 eyes scanned the room constantly, searching for prey. The creature came from a planet called Krendal 4, where everything was a predator. Even the plants could kill. On that world, Razor was the king. Nothing hunted it. It hunted everything. Now it lived in a laboratory orbiting Velaran Prime. Dae-hyun had brought it here 5 years ago. Since then, he had become famous across 12 star systems. He was the man who tamed the untamable, the scientist who could control death itself. Today was another demonstration. Important people from different worlds had come to watch. They sat in the observation gallery, safe behind layers of protective barriers. Ambassador Kyung-soo was there, representing the Valorian Council. He held the funding for Dae-hyun's research. If he was impressed, the money would continue. If not, everything would end. Dr. Hana stood beside Dae-hyun. She was his colleague, a specialist in alien psychology. She looked worried. She always looked worried during these demonstrations. "Are you sure about this?" Hana asked quietly. "Razor has been aggressive this week. The sensors show increased stress levels." Dae-hyun waved his hand dismissively. "Razor is always stressed. It's a killing machine. That's its nature. But I control it. Watch." He pressed a button. The barriers separating them from Razor's chamber began to rise. The creature emerged from the shadows. Even though everyone had seen it before, they still gasped. Razor was terrifying. Its armored body reflected the bright lights. Its eyes locked onto the observers immediately. A low growl filled the room, so deep it made the floor vibrate. Dae-hyun spoke into a microphone. His voice echoed in the chamber. "Razor, sit." The massive creature hesitated. For a moment, it seemed like it might refuse. Then slowly, it lowered itself onto its haunches. The observers murmured with approval. "Stand, turn, display aggression." Dae-hyun gave each command with confidence. Razor obeyed each one. It stood. It turned in a circle. It roared and showed its teeth, making several observers jump in their seats. But it stayed where Dae-hyun told it to stay. "As you can see," Dae-hyun announced to his audience, "complete control. This is achieved through a combination of neural implants and behavioral conditioning. The implants deliver mild discomfort when Razor disobeys. Over time, it has learned that obedience brings relief. This is the future of dangerous species management." Ambassador Kyung-soo nodded slowly. He looked impressed. Hana, however, frowned. She had argued against the neural implants from the beginning. She believed they caused unnecessary suffering. But Dae-hyun had overruled her. Results mattered more than comfort. The demonstration continued for another 20 minutes. Razor performed perfectly. It followed every command. When Dae-hyun finally ordered it back to its holding area, it went without resistance. The barriers came down. The observers applauded politely. Dae-hyun smiled widely. Another successful demonstration. Another step toward securing more funding. Another proof that he was the greatest xenobiologist in the galaxy. Then Hana's communication device beeped. She looked at the screen and her eyes widened. "What is it?" Dae-hyun asked. "A ship just entered the system," Hana said. "A human ship." The room fell silent. Everyone knew about humans. The stories had spread across the galaxy for the past 100 years. They came from a world called Earth, somewhere in an isolated region of space. Their planet was a death world like Krendal the Fur, but different. More diverse. More dangerous in unexpected ways. Humans were strange. They were not particularly strong or fast. They had no natural weapons. No armor, no venom, no claws. Yet they had conquered their world completely. More than that, they had done something no other species had ever managed. They had domesticated predators. They lived alongside creatures that should have killed them. Wolves, big cats, bears. Even apex predators became their companions. The stories seemed impossible. Most species dismissed them as exaggeration. But the humans rarely left their territory, so few could verify the truth. They kept to themselves, avoiding galactic politics and trade. When they did appear, they were polite but distant. And now one was here. They're requesting permission to dock, Hana continued. One human wants to tour the facility. Ambassador Kyung-soo leaned forward. A human here? This is extraordinary. We must grant permission immediately. Dae-hyun felt a flash of irritation. His demonstration had gone perfectly. Why did a random visitor have to interrupt his moment of triumph? But he forced himself to smile. If the human had heard about his work, this could be good publicity. Maybe the human would be impressed. Maybe the stories about their species were exaggerated anyway. Of course, Dae-hyun said. Tell them they are welcome. I would be honored to show them our work. Hana sent the message. Within minutes, they received a reply. The human would arrive within the hour. His name was Taemin. Dae-hyun used the time to prepare. He made sure all the containment chambers were clean and well lit. He reviewed his presentation notes. He wanted everything to be perfect. This was a unique opportunity. A human seeing his work firsthand could spread word throughout their mysterious territory. Hana, meanwhile, seemed increasingly nervous. She checked and rechecked the safety systems. She reviewed the emergency protocols. Dae-hyun noticed but said nothing. Hana always worried too much. That was her nature. When the docking alert sounded, everyone gathered at the arrival bay. Dae-hyun stood at the front, ready to greet their unusual guest. The airlock cycled. The door opened. And Taemin stepped through. He looked ordinary. That was the first surprise. Dae-hyun had expected something impressive, something that would explain the legends. But Taemin was just a man. He was average height with dark hair and brown eyes. He wore simple clothes, nothing fancy or military. He carried no visible weapons. He smiled as he approached, raising one hand in a friendly greeting. Hello, Taemin said. His universal translator handled his language perfectly. Thank you for allowing me to visit. I've heard about your work with dangerous species. I'm very interested in seeing it. Dae-hyun shook his hand. Welcome to the Galactic Research Institute. I'm Professor Dae-hyun. This is Dr. Hana and Ambassador Kyung-soo. They exchanged pleasantries. Taemin was polite and soft-spoken. He asked intelligent questions about the facility. He seemed genuinely curious about everything. Dae-hyun relaxed. This would be easy. But as they walked through the corridors, something strange happened. The creatures in their containment chambers reacted to Taemin. The threshers, serpent-like predators that usually struck at anyone passing by, went quiet. The spinebacks, territorial and aggressive, stopped displaying their quills. Even the crystalline biters, known for their constant screaming, fell silent. Hana noticed immediately. She glanced at Dae-hyun with concern. He noticed too, but pretended not to. There had to be a logical explanation. Maybe the creatures were tired. Maybe they sensed something about humans that made them cautious. It meant nothing. They continued the tour. Taemin stopped at several exhibits, studying the creatures with quiet fascination. At one point, he paused before a particularly aggressive specimen, a creature that had killed 2 handlers before being permanently confined. The creature approached the barrier and simply stared at him. No aggression, no threat display, just curiosity. They're beautiful, Taemin said softly. Dae-hyun forced a laugh. Beautiful and deadly. That's why my work is so important. These creatures must be controlled or they're a threat to everyone. Taemin looked at him thoughtfully but said nothing. Finally, they reached the main attraction, Razor's chamber. Dae-hyun smiled. This was where he would truly impress his guest. If the stories about humans and predators were true, Taemin would appreciate what he had accomplished here. And if the stories were false, he would simply be amazed like everyone else. Now, Dae-hyun said, gesturing toward the massive containment chamber. Let me show you something truly special. The observation gallery was full again. Word had spread quickly that a human was visiting the facility. Scientists and ambassadors who had left after the first demonstration rushed back. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when a human met the Vorithax. Dae-hyun stood at the control panel feeling confident. He had given this presentation hundreds of times. He knew exactly what to do, exactly what to say. Taemin stood beside him, looking through the reinforced glass at Razor's chamber. The human seemed calm. Curious but not afraid. The Vorithax, Dae-hyun began, comes from Krendal 4, classified as a Class 10 death world. On that planet, everything is a predator. The Vorithax evolved to be the ultimate killing machine. Its armor can withstand extreme temperatures and most weapons. Its claws can cut through steel. Its venom is fatal to 97% of known species within minutes. He paused for effect. The observers watched intently. Taemin tilted his head slightly, studying the chamber. I have spent 5 years learning to control this creature, Daehyun continued. Through careful conditioning and neural interface technology, I have achieved what many thought impossible. I have made the galaxy's most dangerous predator obedient. He pressed the control button. The barriers began to rise. The lights in the chamber brightened. And Razor emerged from its resting area. The creature was even more impressive up close. 12 feet of armored muscle and deadly intent. Its 4 eyes scanned the gallery, looking at each observer in turn. Its claws scraped against the metal floor, leaving deep scratches. The low growl that came from its throat made several people step back from the glass instinctively. Daehyun began the demonstration. Razor, sit. The Vorathax sat. Its eyes never stopped moving, though, never stopped searching. Stand. Turn left. Display aggression. Each command was followed. Razor stood, turned, roared with such force that the glass vibrated. Its teeth glistened with venom, its claws extended fully. For a moment it looked like it might attack, but then it stopped, waiting for the next command. The observers were impressed. Ambassador Kyung-soo nodded with approval. Hana watched nervously, her hand hovering near the emergency shutdown controls. She always did that during demonstrations. Then something changed. Razor's eyes found Taemin. All 4 of them locked onto the human. The creature's entire body went still. Not the stillness of obedience, the stillness of a predator that had spotted prey. Daehyun noticed the change immediately. Razor, return to center position. The Vorathax didn't move. Its eyes stayed fixed on Taemin. Its growl changed pitch, becoming deeper, more focused. Razor, Daehyun said more firmly. Return to center position. Now. Still nothing. The creature took a step forward, then another. It was moving toward the glass. Toward Taemin, murmurs of concern rippled through the gallery. Hana's hand moved closer to the emergency controls. Ambassador Kyung-soo stood up from his seat. This wasn't part of the demonstration. This wasn't supposed to happen. Daehyun felt panic rising in his chest. 5 years. 5 years of perfect control. And now, in front of the most important audience he'd ever had, Razor was ignoring him. He pressed the button that activated the neural implant. A mild pulse of discomfort. Usually, that was enough. Razor flinched but kept moving forward. Daehyun pressed the button again, harder this time. The implant would be causing pain now. Razor had never resisted this level before. The Vorathax snarled. Its claws dug into the floor. But it didn't stop. It was completely focused on the human. Something about Taemin had triggered every predatory instinct in the creature's body. The neural implant, the conditioning, the years of training, none of it mattered anymore. Shut it down, someone shouted from the gallery. Use the emergency protocols. Hana reached for the controls, but Daehyun grabbed her arm. No, I can handle this. Razor, return to... Professor, Taemin said quietly. His voice was calm. May I enter the chamber? The entire gallery fell silent. Everyone stared at the human. Had he lost his mind? The Vorathax was clearly agitated, clearly focused on him as prey. And he wanted to go in there? Absolutely not, Daehyun said. That would be suicide. Razor is. It's not responding properly right now. We need to... With respect, Professor, I don't think your methods are working, Taemin said. He was still looking at Razor. The creature was pressed against the glass now, all 4 eyes locked on him. I'd like to try a different approach. Ambassador Kyung-soo stepped forward. This is highly irregular. The liability alone... I take full responsibility, Taemin said. I won't hold anyone here liable for what happens, but I think I can help. Daehyun wanted to refuse. His pride screamed at him to refuse. But he looked at Razor, still ignoring every command, and felt his confidence crumbling. What if he couldn't regain control? What if his entire career was about to be destroyed in front of everyone? Fine. he said through gritted teeth. But, at the first sign of danger, we're activating full containment protocols. Taemin nodded. He walked to the chamber entrance. Hana opened it with shaking hands. The security systems chimed warnings. Every sensor in the facility registered the danger. A human, with no armor and no weapons, was about to enter a chamber with an agitated Vorathax. The door opened. Taemin stepped inside. The door closed behind him. Razor immediately turned away from the glass. It faced the human directly now. Up close, the size difference was even more dramatic. The Vorathax towered over Taemin. Its claws could disembowel him with a single swipe. Its teeth could pierce his skull. Its venom could kill him in seconds. The creature took a step forward. Its growl filled the chamber. Every observer held their breath. Hana's finger hovered over the emergency button. Dae-hyun felt sweat on his forehead. And Taemin did something that made no sense to anyone watching. He stepped forward too, not away from the danger, toward it. Razor stopped, its head tilted to one side. Confusion replaced aggression in its eyes. This wasn't how prey behaved. Prey ran. Prey screamed. Prey smelled of fear. But this small creature was walking toward it calmly, deliberately, without any sign of fear at all. Taemin raised his hand slowly, not in threat, not in defense, just an open palm, extended toward the massive predator. He spoke softly, his voice barely audible through the observation speakers. "Hey there. It's okay. I know you're confused. All these people watching you, all these lights and sounds. It must be stressful. I understand." The Vorathax took another step forward. Its nose was inches from Taemin's extended hand. It could bite it off effortlessly. The observers gasped. Dae-hyun almost shouted a warning. But then something extraordinary happened. Razor sniffed the human's hand. Once, twice. Its eyes, all four of them, studied Taemin with intense focus. Not the focus of a predator looking at prey, the focus of an intelligent creature trying to understand something new. "You're from a death world, aren't you?" Taemin said gently. "So am I. Earth. My planet is dangerous too, not like yours maybe, but dangerous enough. I grew up around creatures that could kill me. Big ones, strong ones, fast ones. I learned to respect them, to understand them, not to fear them." He took another small step forward. His hand moved closer to Razor's armored head. The creature didn't pull back, didn't snap at him, it just watched. "You miss your home, don't you?" Taemin's voice was sad now, sympathetic. "All these metal walls, these artificial lights. This isn't where you belong. I'm sorry they brought you here. I'm sorry they've been hurting you to make you obey." Dae-hyun felt a flash of anger at those words, but he couldn't look away. Nobody could. They were witnessing something impossible. Taemin's hand finally made contact with Razor's head. Just a gentle touch, the lightest pressure against the armored plates. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Razor's eyes closed. The growl in its throat changed, became softer, almost like purring. The massive predator, the apex killing machine of Krendal 4, leaned into the human's touch. Then slowly the Vorathax lowered itself to the ground. It settled onto its belly, its head still within reach of Taemin's hand. The aggressive posture was gone. The tension in its muscles was gone. It looked almost peaceful. Taemin smiled. "That's it? Good. You're safe with me, I won't hurt you." He sat down beside the creature, right there on the chamber floor, next to a predator that could kill him instantly, and Razor didn't move, didn't threaten. It just stayed there, eyes closed, accepting the human's presence. The observation gallery erupted in shocked whispers. Ambassador Kyung-soo stared with wide eyes. Hana's mouth hung open, and Dae-hyun felt his entire world crumbling around him. 5 years of work, 5 years of research and conditioning and control. And this human had walked in and accomplished more in 5 minutes than Dae-hyun had in 5 years. Not through technology, not through pain, through something else entirely. Something Dae-hyun didn't understand. Tae-min looked up at the observation window. He met Dae-hyun's eyes and spoke clearly. You don't control a predator by making it fear you. You earn its respect by respecting it first. Tae-min stayed in the chamber with Razor for 3 hours. The entire time, the Vorithax remained calm. It followed the human around like an oversized pet. When Tae-min sat, Razor settled nearby. When he stood, the creature watched with curious eyes. When he spoke, it seemed to listen. The observation gallery never emptied. Scientists and ambassadors stayed to watch. Word spread throughout the station. Soon everyone who could get clearance came to see the impossible sight. A human and the galaxy's deadliest predator, existing together peacefully. Dae-hyun watched from behind the glass. He said nothing. His mind was racing. Everything he believed about predator control was being proven wrong before his eyes. The neural implants, the conditioning, the fear-based training, all of it was supposed to be scientific, evidence-based, the only way to safely manage dangerous creatures. But this human wasn't using any of that. He had no technology, no weapons, no safety equipment, just calm confidence and gentle words, and Razor responded to him better than it had ever responded to Dae-hyun. Hana stood beside him. She had been taking notes the entire time. Her scientific mind was working overtime, analyzing what she was seeing. Finally, she spoke. It's recognizing him as a fellow predator, she said quietly. Look at Razor's body language. It's not submission. It's acceptance, respect. The creature sees Tae-min as an equal, not a threat or a master. Dae-hyun frowned. That doesn't make sense. Humans aren't apex predators. They have no natural weapons. They're physically weak compared to species like the Vorithax. You're thinking about it wrong, Hana said. Humans aren't apex predators the way Razor is. But they're predators nonetheless. They evolved as hunters on a death world. More importantly, they evolved the ability to form bonds with other predators. Dogs, wolves, even big cats. They've been doing this for thousands of years. She pulled up information on her datapad. Images of Earth appeared. Humans with various animals, large animals, dangerous animals, all of them together peacefully. Look at this, Hana continued. These are wolves, apex predators from Earth. Humans domesticated them into dogs over 15,000 years ago. They didn't do it through fear or pain. They did it through cooperation and mutual benefit. The wolves helped humans hunt. Humans provided food and protection. Both species benefited. She swiped to another image. These are horses. Herbivores, but extremely dangerous. They can kill with their hooves. But humans learned to ride them, work with them, trust them. They formed partnerships, more images. Humans with elephants. With dolphins. With birds of prey. With animals that should have been threats, but weren't. Because humans had figured out something no other species in the galaxy had truly mastered. It's not control, Hana said. It's communication, understanding, empathy. Humans don't try to dominate other creatures. They try to understand them, to find common ground. That's what Tae-min is doing with Razor right now. Dae-hyun stared at the images, then back at the chamber. Tae-min was sitting cross-legged on the floor. Razor's massive head was resting near his lap. The human was talking softly, one hand gently stroking the creature's armored plates. This changes everything, Ambassador Kyung-soo said. He had been listening to their conversation. If humans can do this with any dangerous species, their value to the galaxy is immeasurable. We have facilities across 12 systems struggling to manage aggressive creatures. Attacks on handlers are common. Containment breaches happen regularly. But if this method works, he looked at Dae-hyun. I'm sorry, Professor, but I think we need to reconsider our approach. The neural implants, the pain conditioning, it's not just ineffective. It might be making things worse. Creating stress and aggression instead of preventing it, Dae-hyun wanted to argue, wanted to defend his methods, but he couldn't. Not while Razor was proving him wrong with every peaceful moment. He had spent 5 years thinking he had achieved something remarkable. Now he realized he had just been hurting a creature that needed understanding, not punishment. What do we do now? He asked quietly. Ambassador Kyung-soo thought for a moment. We talk to the human. We learn from him. And we start making changes. Later that day, after Tae-min finally left the chamber, they gathered in a conference room. Razor had allowed him to leave without any aggression. The creature even seemed sad to see him go. It was the first time Dae-hyun had seen Razor display anything resembling emotion other than anger or hunger. Taemin sat at the conference table looking tired but satisfied. Daehyun, Hana, Ambassador Kyung-soo, and several other officials sat across from him. The tension in the room was obvious. "How did you do that?" Daehyun asked. His pride was wounded, but he needed to know. 5 years. I spent 5 years trying to control that creature. You walked in and befriended it in minutes. How? Taemin leaned back in his chair. I didn't befriend it. Not really. I just stopped treating it like a machine. Razor isn't a robot you can program. It's a living being with feelings and intelligence. It's scared, angry, lonely. Imagine being taken from your home and locked in a metal box. Imagine being hurt every time you don't do what your captors want. How would you feel? The question hung in the air. Daehyun felt uncomfortable. He had never thought about it that way. To him, Razor had always been a subject, a specimen, not a person with emotions. On Earth, Taemin continued, we learned a long time ago that you can't force animals to obey through fear alone. It doesn't work long term. They become stressed, aggressive, unpredictable. The best animal handlers don't dominate. They communicate. They build trust. They show respect. But Razor is incredibly dangerous, another official said. Surely some level of control is necessary for safety. Of course, Taemin agreed. But there's a difference between safety measures and cruelty. You can keep people safe without causing suffering. Better habitats that meet the creature's needs. Enrichment activities. Proper socialization. Training based on positive reinforcement, not pain. These methods work. They've worked on Earth for thousands of years. Hana nodded enthusiastically. I've been saying this for years. The research supports positive methods, but it's been difficult to convince people that they work with truly dangerous species. You've convinced me, Ambassador Kyung-soo said. He looked at Taemin seriously. Would you be willing to help us? To teach us your methods? We have facilities throughout the galaxy that desperately need this knowledge. Taemin considered this carefully. Maybe, but there would have to be conditions. First, the neural implants have to go. All of them. They're causing pain, and that's not acceptable. Daehyun felt a pang at those words. The neural implants were his design, his contribution to xenobiology. But he couldn't deny what he had seen. They didn't work. Not really. Second, Taemin continued, the creatures need better living conditions. Razor's habitat is basically a prison cell. It needs space, stimulation, things that remind it of home. You can't expect a being to stay calm and healthy in a metal box. Third, your staff needs training. Real training in animal behavior and psychology, not just how to operate containment systems. They need to understand these creatures as individuals, to read their body language, to recognize signs of stress or discomfort. He paused. And finally, this can't be about control anymore. It has to be about care. These creatures didn't ask to be captured. They didn't ask to be studied. The least we can do is treat them with dignity. The room was silent. Everyone was processing what they had heard. These weren't small changes. This was a complete transformation of how they operated. Ambassador Kyung-soo looked at his colleagues. Some nodded. Others looked uncertain. Finally, he turned back to Taemin. You have a deal, he said. We'll make the changes. All of them. I'll authorize funding for habitat improvements immediately. We'll bring in human consultants to train our staff, and we'll remove the neural implants as soon as it's safe to do so. He looked at Daehyun. Professor, I know this is difficult, but I hope you'll stay and be part of this transformation. Your knowledge of these creatures is valuable. You just need to apply it differently. Daehyun sat quietly for a long moment. His ego was bruised. His methods had been rejected. Everything he thought he knew had been challenged. But he looked at Hana, who was smiling hopefully. He thought about Razor, finally calm after years of stress. He remembered Taemin's words about treating creatures with dignity. Maybe he had been wrong. Maybe there was a better way. Maybe it wasn't too late to learn. I'll stay, he said quietly. I want to learn. I want to do better, Taemin smiled. Good, because you're going to need patience. Real change takes time, but it's worth it. I promise. Over the next few weeks, the facility began to transform. Construction crews started building new habitats. The neural implant systems were carefully deactivated and removed. Human-animal behavior specialists arrived from Earth to begin training programs. Daehyun threw himself into learning. He studied Earth's methods of animal care. He read research papers on positive reinforcement. He observed the human trainers as they worked with various creatures. It was humbling. He had thought himself an expert, but he realized he had been missing the most important element: understanding the creatures themselves. Razor's transformation was the most dramatic. With the neural implants gone, the creature's stress levels dropped significantly. 3 months later, the Galactic Research Institute looked completely different. The old containment chambers with their bare metal walls and harsh lighting had been replaced. Now each creature lived in a habitat designed to match its home world. Plants, rocks, water features, varied terrain. Everything carefully planned to provide comfort and stimulation. The neural implant equipment had been dismantled and stored away. In its place were training tools based on positive reinforcement, food rewards, enrichment toys, social interaction. The handlers no longer tried to dominate the creatures. They tried to understand them. 12 human specialists now worked at the facility. They came from different parts of Earth, each with expertise in different types of animals. Some specialized in large predators. Others worked with intelligent species like dolphins and elephants. One had spent 20 years studying reptiles. Another was an expert in animal psychology. They brought Earth's knowledge to the galaxy. Techniques refined over thousands of years. Understanding built through countless interactions between humans and animals. And most importantly, they brought patience and compassion. The results were remarkable. The threshers, once aggressive and unpredictable, now allowed handlers to perform medical checks without sedation. The spinebacks participated in training exercises willingly. Even the crystalline biters, whose sonic screams had once made them impossible to approach, learned to communicate peacefully with their caretakers. But the most impressive transformation was Razor. The Vorathax had become almost unrecognizable from the angry creature it had been. In its new habitat, it thrived. The space was massive, filled with features from Krendal 4, rocky outcrops for climbing, dense vegetation for hiding, a temperature gradient that let it choose its comfort level. Taman had spent weeks working with Razor daily, teaching it that humans could be trusted, that not all interactions meant pain or stress, that cooperation brought benefits, and slowly the creature's personality had emerged. Razor was playful. That was the biggest surprise. When given enrichment items, large balls, puzzle feeders, climbing structures, it engaged with them enthusiastically. It seemed to enjoy learning new things, solving problems, interacting with handlers who treated it with respect. The creature even showed preferences. It liked some handlers more than others. It had favorite foods. It enjoyed certain types of environmental enrichment over others. These weren't the behaviors of a simple killing machine. They were the behaviors of an intelligent being with individual personality and preferences. Dae-hyun watched all of this with mixed emotions. Pride because he was part of making it happen, shame because of how he had treated Razor before, and wonder because he was discovering things about these creatures he had never imagined. He worked closely with a human trainer named Sora. She was patient with him. Understanding that changing deeply held beliefs took time, she taught him to read animal body language, to recognize signs of stress, fear, contentment, curiosity, to understand that every interaction communicated something. "Look at how Razor's holding its head," Sora said one day during a training session. "See that angle? That means it's relaxed but alert, interested in what we're doing but not threatened. Compare that to how it used to hold its head, low and tense. That was defensive posturing. It expected danger." Dae-hyun studied the creature carefully. Sora was right. The difference was obvious once you knew what to look for. Razor's entire demeanor had changed. It wasn't just obeying commands anymore. It was participating, choosing to engage. That was a fundamental difference. Word of the facility's transformation spread quickly through the galaxy. Other research stations reached out asking for help. Zoos and conservation centers wanted to learn the new methods. Even military installations that kept dangerous creatures for security purposes expressed interest. Ambassador Kyung-soo held a meeting to discuss the growing demand. Representatives from various facilities attended via holographic communication. The meeting room was packed. "The question before us," Kyung-soo began, "is how we expand this program. We have 12 human trainers here and they're doing excellent work. But we have hundreds of facilities across the galaxy that need help. We can't bring humans to all of them. So what do we do?" Taman spoke up. You train your own people. The humans here can't be everywhere, but we can teach others our methods. Create a certification program. Standards that every facility must meet. It will take time, but it's the only sustainable approach. A representative from a distant station asked, "Will it work with any species? We have creatures that are truly alien, not just dangerous but completely unlike anything on Earth. Can your methods apply to them?" Sora answered, "The specific techniques might vary, but the principles are universal. Every living creature has needs. Every intelligent being has emotions. Fear, curiosity, contentment, these exist across species. If you learn to recognize and respect those things, you can build a relationship. It won't always be easy. Some species will be harder than others, but it's possible." She pulled up a hologram. It showed a creature that looked like nothing from Earth. Crystalline structures, multiple limbs, bioluminescent patterns. "This is a luminar from the methane worlds. We've been working with it for a month. At first we had no idea how to communicate, but we observed. We learned its patterns. We figured out what stressed it and what calmed it. Now it responds to visual signals. It participates in medical procedures. It's even teaching us about its species." The hologram changed. Now it showed a human handler using colored light patterns to interact with the luminar. The creature responded with its own bioluminescence, back and forth, a conversation in light. "That's remarkable," someone said. Others murmured agreement. The meeting continued for hours. Plans were made. Resources allocated. A training academy would be established at the institute. Students from across the galaxy would come to learn proper animal care and behavior management. Human instructors would teach, but eventually graduates would return to their home systems and spread the knowledge further. Hana was put in charge of developing the curriculum. She worked with the human trainers to create comprehensive courses, theory and practice, science and ethics, how to build habitats, how to read behavior, how to train without fear, how to recognize when a creature was suffering, and how to help. Dae-hyun became one of the first students in the new program. His years of experience with alien species were valuable, but he needed to relearn his approach. He attended every lecture. He practiced with every creature in the facility. He made mistakes and learned from them. One day, Sora asked him to demonstrate what he had learned. They stood outside Razor's habitat. The Vorithax was visible in the distance, resting on a rocky outcrop. "Call it over," Sora said, without commands. "Just invite it." Dae-hyun felt nervous. He had worked with Razor many times since the changes began, but always with other handlers present. This was different. This was a test of whether he truly understood. He entered the habitat alone. Razor noticed immediately. Its head turned toward him. All four eyes focused. Dae-hyun remembered the old days when that look meant danger. Now he could read the subtle signs. The creature was curious, not aggressive. He sat down on the ground, not standing over the creature like a threat, not trying to dominate, just sitting, being present, showing that he wasn't there to hurt or control, just to visit. Razor watched him for a long moment. Then slowly it climbed down from the outcrop. It approached with careful steps. When it reached Dae-hyun, it lowered its massive head and sniffed him, checking, deciding whether to trust. Dae-hyun stayed still. He kept his breathing calm. He didn't reach out or try to touch. He just waited, letting Razor make the choice. The Vorithax settled beside him. Not as close as it did with Taemin or the other trainers it knew better, but close enough, accepting his presence, giving him a chance. Dae-hyun felt his eyes getting wet. This creature had every reason to hate him. He had hurt it for years, caused it pain and stress, and yet here it was, willing to give him another chance. That was more forgiveness than he deserved. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't understand. I thought I was keeping everyone safe. But I was just hurting you. I'm sorry." Razor couldn't understand his words, but it seemed to understand the emotion behind them. The creature shifted slightly closer. Not quite comfortable, but no longer wary. It was a start. Outside the habitat, Sora watched with approval. When Dae-hyun finally emerged, she smiled at him. "You passed," she said simply. That evening, news arrived from a research station 3 systems away. They had been trying to manage a creature called a Stormclaw, a massive predator from a high-gravity world. It had been getting increasingly aggressive. Attacks on handlers were becoming common. They were considering destroying it, but then they heard about the Institute's new methods. They asked if someone could visit and assess the situation. Maybe there was another way. A human trainer named Bora volunteered to go. She had experience with large, aggressive species. She packed her equipment and prepared to leave. Before she left, Taemin spoke with her privately. Remember, we're not miracle workers. Some situations can't be fixed quickly. Some creatures have been traumatized too badly. Your job isn't to control them. 1 year after Taemin's first visit, the Galactic Research Institute hosted a conference. Representatives from 200 worlds attended. Scientists, zookeepers, conservation officers, government officials, anyone involved with managing dangerous species came to learn about the revolution in animal care. The institute itself served as proof of what was possible. Visitors toured the new habitats. They watched handlers work peacefully with creatures that had once been considered uncontrollable. They saw the training sessions based on trust rather than fear. They attended lectures on animal psychology and behavior. But the highlight of the conference was the demonstration with Razor. Not a demonstration of control. A demonstration of partnership. The presentation was held in a large amphitheater built specifically for this purpose. Hundreds of observers filled the seats. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Everyone had heard the stories. Now they would see for themselves. Taemin entered the arena first. Behind him, Daehyun followed. The former enemies were now colleagues. The human who had challenged everything, and the scientist who had learned to change. They stood at the center of the arena. Daehyun spoke into a microphone so everyone could hear. 1 year ago, I stood in a place like this and told you I had achieved perfect control over the galaxy's deadliest predator. I was wrong. I didn't have control. I had compliance through fear. The creature you're about to meet was suffering, stressed, angry, living in constant discomfort because of the methods I used. He paused. The audience was silent, listening intently. Today I want to show you something different. Not control. Understanding. Not dominance. Respect. What you're about to see is the result of treating an intelligent creature with the dignity it deserves. A door opened at the far end of the arena. Razor emerged. The observers gasped. The Vorathax was as impressive as ever. 12 feet of armored muscle. Deadly claws. Rows of teeth. Everything about it screamed danger. But its demeanor was completely different from a year ago. It moved with confidence rather than aggression. Its head was up, alert but not defensive. It looked around the arena with curiosity rather than rage. When it saw Taemin, its pace quickened. Not charging, just eager. The massive creature approached the human and lowered its head. Taemin reached out and stroked the armored plates gently. The observers could hear a low rumbling sound. Razor was purring. "This is Razor," Taemin said. His voice was amplified so everyone could hear. A Vorathax from Krendal 4. 1 year ago, it was controlled through neural implants and fear conditioning. It obeyed commands because disobedience meant pain. Today it participates willingly because it trusts us. He gestured toward Daehyun. Professor Daehyun will demonstrate some of the training we've done. Daehyun stepped forward. He felt nervous but also proud. This was nothing like the demonstrations he used to give. No commands shouted. No buttons to cause pain. Just communication between two beings who had learned to trust each other. He used hand signals. Gentle gestures that Razor had learned to recognize. The creature responded to each one. Not instantly like a machine, but thoughtfully as if considering each request and choosing to comply. Razor walked to different locations in the arena. It climbed onto obstacles. It allowed Daehyun to examine its claws and teeth, something that would have been impossible a year ago without sedation. All of it done calmly, willingly, because the creature understood it was safe. Then Taemin did something that made the audience gasp. He lay down on the arena floor, completely vulnerable. No protection, no safety equipment, just a human lying on the ground near a predator that could kill him in seconds. Razor approached and settled beside him. The massive creature rested its head near Taemin's chest. The image was stunning. Beauty and danger together in perfect peace. "This is trust," Taemin said softly. "Real trust. Not forced. Not controlled. Freely given by a creature that knows I respect it. That knows I care about its well-being. That knows I will never deliberately hurt it." He sat up slowly. Razor watched him but didn't move. Taemin stood and addressed the audience directly. On Earth, humans have lived alongside dangerous animals for thousands of years. We've learned that fear and punishment create more problems than they solve, that understanding and respect build better relationships, that every creature, no matter how dangerous, deserves to be treated with dignity. This knowledge isn't ours alone. We're sharing it freely with everyone. The training programs here at the Institute are open to all species. We want to help. Because every creature in a cage deserves better than fear. Every handler deserves to work without relying on pain. Every facility can be better than it is. The amphitheater erupted in applause. It started slowly but built to a standing ovation. The observers weren't just impressed. They were inspired. They could see that change was possible. After the demonstration, Ambassador Kyung-soo gave a formal speech. He stood at a podium while holographic screens showed images from facilities across the galaxy. Before and after pictures. Stressed creatures in barren cages transformed into healthy animals in proper habitats. Aggressive behaviors replaced by calm participation. Fear replaced by trust. What began here 1 year ago has spread throughout the galaxy, Kyung-soo said. 200 facilities have adopted these new methods. Thousands of creatures are living better lives. Hundreds of handlers work more safely. And it's all because one human showed us a better way. He gestured toward Taemin. Humanity has given us many gifts, technology, art, philosophy. But perhaps their greatest gift is this: compassion, the understanding that every living being matters. That kindness is not weakness. That respect costs nothing but gives everything. We thought we needed to control the dangerous creatures of the galaxy. Humanity showed us we needed to understand them. In doing so, they reminded us of something we had forgotten. That intelligence and emotion exist across species. That suffering is suffering, regardless of form. That we have a responsibility to minimize harm and maximize well-being. The applause came again, louder this time. Kyung-soo waited for it to quiet before continuing. This conference marks the beginning of a new era in galactic animal management. We are establishing standards that every facility must meet. Habitat requirements, training protocols, welfare assessments. These will be mandatory throughout all member systems, because if we've learned anything this year, it's that there's no excuse for causing unnecessary suffering, not when better methods exist. Over the next 3 days, the conference continued. Workshops on habitat design, lectures on animal behavior, training sessions in positive reinforcement techniques, species-specific guidelines for everything from aquatic creatures to flying predators, to beings that existed in forms barely comprehensible to most attendees. Human trainers led most of the sessions, but increasingly, alien students who had completed the certification program took on teaching roles. The knowledge was spreading, becoming universal rather than unique to Earth. Dae-hyun taught several workshops himself. He shared his experience of transformation, how difficult it had been to admit he was wrong, how humbling to start over as a student, but also how rewarding to finally see the creatures in his care truly thriving. I wasted 5 years, he told one group. 5 years causing suffering while thinking I was doing good work. I can't get that time back. I can't undo the harm I caused. But I can make sure others don't make the same mistakes. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm telling you this story. Learn from my failures. Be better than I was. On the final evening of the conference, a small gathering was held. Just a few dozen people. The core group who had been there from the beginning. Taemin, Dae-hyun, Hana, Ambassador Kyung-soo, and the human trainers who had come to help. They stood outside Razor's habitat as artificial stars appeared overhead. The Vorithax was visible inside, resting peacefully. Dae-hyun looked at the creature for a long moment before speaking. I owe it an apology that it can never truly understand, he said quietly, but I hope it knows things are different now. Better, that it's safe. That it matters, Taemin smiled. It knows, trust me. Animals understand more than we give them credit for. Razor knows life is better now. That's what matters, Hana raised a glass. To new beginnings. To learning from our mistakes. To treating all creatures with the respect they deserve. They all raised their glasses and drank. It was a small moment, quiet and personal. But it represented something larger. A shift in thinking across an entire galaxy. A recognition that power didn't mean control. That advancement didn't require cruelty. That kindness was not just ethical but effective. Later that night, Taemin prepared to leave. His ship was ready. He had stayed longer than planned, but it was time to return to Earth. There were reports to file. Other humans to recruit. More work to be done. Before he left, he visited Razor one last time. The creature recognized him immediately. It approached the habitat barrier and pressed its head against it. Taman placed his hand on the other side, as close to contact as the barrier allowed. "Take care of yourself, big guy," Taman said softly. "You've got good people looking after you now. People who understand, who care. You're going to be okay." Razor rumbled softly. That purring sound it only made when content. Taman smiled and turned to leave.